Hi, I'm Britt.
And my name is Alissa.
And this is SkeleTales.
And this is the podcast where we strive to answer the age-old question of, is my dead grandma watching me?
I have some new grandma curses for you.
Oh
now,
my gosh.
if you recall, these are little curses that grandma gives just to show that she's around, or maybe let you know that she is always watching you, all the naughty shit you're doing.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Hit me.
When you're walking outside and a bug flies into your mouth or your nose, or maybe even your ear, any orifice. Grandma.
That my theory on that is grandma just got reincarnated as something real shit. And she's like, let's get this over with, this life. Let's move on up the food chain. Anyway, okay.
Fruit fly.
Yeah. I've told you that I was sucking on a bug once, right? I think I've told that story on it. Like, I thought I had, yeah. I was like, wait, I'm not chewing gum. Oh, yeah. Okay. Grandma.
Okay, Grandma. When you go to sip your glass of wine at the end of the day, and there's a bug swimming in it, also, Grandma. She chose the wine instead of the orifice.
She's like, you're drinking too much. Little does she know.
Or she's like,
don't care.
Share with me. All right. When an eyelash falls in your eyeball and you can't get it out, it's like stuck in the deep crevice, and you're just like, it hurts, but I can't get it.
Any more?
That's all I got.
Oh, shit.
I think.
How about when you're wearing a pair of like flowing pants, like wide leg pants or something, and you're feeling kind of cool and comfy, and then you go run for something, and then your foot snags the pants, and then you trip and fall, like your Jenkos, like when you wear your Jenkos.
Yes, but maybe like some. I mean, we're too old to wear Jenkos. Let's be honest.
Bullshit. You're wearing them right now.
Stop. Don't tell anybody.
Stop lying.
The flowy ones, though, I've fallen down the stairs tripping on those shits before.
Your foot gets all tangled in them.
Yes. You know, so last week you told the one, you were like, when you're walking and your sock gets shoved down into your shoe, and now you're having to walk on with your sock jammed in your shoe. I laughed, oh, that's a good one. And then in my head, I was like, I don't think that's happened to me in like 10 years. That same day, I went out to the store and my sock twice shoved down into my shoe, and I was like, Grandma! Alissa called it.
Or when you go for a walk and your toenail pops right through your sock, and then you got your toes sticking out your sock. That happened to me just yesterday. So that's Grandma.
It's especially worse when you're wearing it with those sandals, socks with sandals, and your toes just popping out.
Well, you deserve it then. I'm with Grandma on that one.
Cursed.
Yep, cursed. Hey, Britt, do we just talk about Grandma plaguing us with minor inconveniences because we're naughty grandchildren on this podcast?
Only every episode in the beginning. But we also tell true tales of the strange, unusual, and paranormal.
Heck yeah, we do.
Do you have any of those tales to tell today?
I do, Britt. Real quick though, I have to, let's start it off with it's not a crypt of corrections. It's not a,
the
cringe corner. It's a, fun feedback, unsolicited fun feedback. Maybe,
what could be a good little, catchy tag for that? Furious feedback.
Frightening feedback, but it's not frightening. I'm just going to get cut to the chase here.
Just some feedback.
Friend of the podcast.
Okay.
So he reaches out last week after immediately listening to our episode on fairies and evil gnomes. I forget what the name of that one was.
Yeah, that's it. That's about right.
Yeah, about right. And if you remember, you warned me that I was going to get some hate for a very controversial comment, controversy corner. Maybe this is what it is. Controversial comment, hot take I made about all those Princess Mononoke movies and all that. Boring.
I'm telling you, haters are going to hate on you because you're wrong. But yes, go ahead.
Oh, maybe I shouldn't name who wrote this because he might not want me to. I might have to bleep his name. Anyway, we got some feedback on that. And I was told that I've been doing it wrong. Okay.
Okay.
The feedback was, okay, so you're supposed to watch Princess Mononoke on mushrooms. Those are the rules, and changes the whole tune. I've been doing it wrong.
Agreed.
Oh.
Agreed.
Well, no one told me that. I didn't know that
I've watched it a dozen times, but if you're finding it boring, pop a shroom. And it's not boring anymore. In fact, most things won't be very boring with.
I think that's a really great life lesson, honestly. Yeah, that applies to everything in life.
Question mark, pop a shroom.
There we go. Okay, done. Great. You know what? Just solving all the problems of life right now. So thank you, listener, for writing in
great
with
feedback.
That hot tip.
Any of those movies, truly great on a shroom.
Heck yeah.
I have some stories today. You got some stories today?
I got some stories today, Britt.
Can I go first, though?
Sure. You go first.
So, if we recall, last episode we were talking about fairies, about evil gnomes, and I didn't have enough time to tell an Irish fairy lore that I really wanted to. It goes down a dark path because that's how we roll.
Ooh.
This comes from the Irish Times, and it was written by Dean Ruxton.
Oh, Dean.
And I shall tell you now, Dean.
Dean
I'm not going to do it in
Ruxton.
Irish accent, though, because it's too distracting for me.
Okay.
When Johanna Burke went to pay her cousin Bridget Cleary a visit, she found the 26-year-old being held down and force-fed a concoction of herbs and milk. The men restraining her were 3 of Johanna's brothers, an elderly neighbor named John Doone, and Bridget's own husband, Michael. Bridget, dressmaker and egg seller from Ballyvedella near Colnmill, Tipperary.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Let me start over. Bridget, dressmaker, egg seller from Ireland, had taken ill and been bedridden for a number of days. She had remained under the watchful care of Michael, who had sent for a doctor in a nearby town, and at one point requested a priest. By Thursday, March 14th, 1895, he had also sent for herbs gleaned from a witch doctor type named Dennis. Sorry, I've never heard of a witch doctor named Dennis. By that stage, Michael was gripped by the belief that his wife was a malevolent fairy changeling. According to the court report in the Irish Times on March 27th, Johanna said that the men forced Bridget to take the herbs. Cleary, her husband, asked her, "Are you Bridget Boland, the wife of Michael Cleary, in the name of God?" And she answered twice, "Yes, it's me, Bridget." But when she refused to answer the third time, she was hauled up and held in a sitting position over the slow-burning embers of the kitchen fire. Bridget seemed to be wild and deranged, especially while they were treating her. So while they were holding her over the fire, she was acting wild and deranged.
Weird.
She eventually reported, "I am Bridget Boland, daughter of Pat Boland, in the name of God," referring to her maiden name. The above story would form just one part of a series of violent acts against Bridget that would culminate in her death. It is also the testimony of Johanna Burke, the main witness in the murder case, in which 8 people would be convicted for their roles in Bridget's abuse. Michael Cleary, her husband, who was 35 at the time, was a cooper from Ireland. The two had, I can't pronounce it. We'll just say Tipperary. I can't pronounce that part. Tipperary. The two had been married for about 8 years and had no children. As far as Johanna Burke could see, the couple were on good terms. She never saw them quarrel or dispute. While taking a walk to deliver eggs to another town in Ireland that I can't pronounce, the site of a fairy ring, according to local folklore, Bridget had caught a chill. Okay, so she's delivering eggs, and there's the site of a fairy ring in this town, I guess. And while she passed it, she caught a chill.
Okay.
Her house was often occupied by a smattering of neighbors and relatives, many of whom would become embroiled in Michael Cleary's growing belief in a supernatural basis for his wife's sickness. According to a 1995 analysis, this belief may have also been boosted by the presence of neighbors who believed that they were still aligned with the old fairy traditions that were dying out at the end of the 19th century. A fairy changeling, as lore would have it, was a duplicate put in the place of a real person, often a woman or child, after they were abducted by fairies. According to Johanna, after the episode on Thursday, the men put Bridget back to bed. In the house the next day, Bridget, who I'm imagining now is blistered and in a lot of pain, tells Michael that she could see the police at the window and that he should leave her alone. He responded by throwing the contents of a nearby chamber pot over her and at the window.
Timeline-wise, so this is not right after she came back with the eggs. This is after she was held over the fire and back at the house.
Collects the eggs. She catches a cold.
Got it.
Her husband thinks that she's a changeling. And so he's like yelling at her. He's putting her over the flames. This is the next day. He's throwing a chamber pot at her.
Okay.
And lots of neighbors are all in the house around this time. Lots of people. While he's basically abusing his wife. And so then Bridget says, your mother used to go with the fairies, and that is why you think I'm going with them. Michael then prepared 3 pieces of bread and jam, demanding Bridget eat all 3 before she could drink a cup of tea made by Johanna, who was a witness in this murder case. Again, he asked her identity 3 times, and she answered twice and ate 2 pieces of bread. When she did not answer the 3rd time, he forced her to eat the 3rd bit, saying, if you won't take it down, you will go. He threw her to the ground and mounted her with a knee on her chest and a hand on her throat. Swallow it, he said. Is it down? Is it down? He grabbed a hot stick from the fire and held it close to her mouth. Finally, he stripped her to her undies, doused her in lamp oil a number of times, then set her alight. It is not my wife, Michael reported when she was burning. I'm not going to keep an old witch in a place of my wife, so I must get back my wife, he said, referring to the traditional expectation that once the changeling died, the abducted love would return riding on a white horse. She was burning on the hearth. The house was full of smoke and smells, said Johanna in her testimony. When I looked down to the kitchen, I saw the remains of Bridget Cleary on the floor, lying on a sheet. One of the people, Pat Kennedy, helped carry the remains from the house. Bridget's burnt body was later discovered in a shallow grave nearby, and 10 people, all of whom were in the house at some point throughout this whole ordeal, were arrested. The case then went to trial. And that they said of Michael Cleary, they said he was a respectably dressed man, though his eyes had a wild kind of look, and he was prone to outbursts during the trial, charging his co-accused with colluding against him. He was eventually sentenced to 20 years of servitude for manslaughter, and he served 15 of those years, then immigrated to Canada. 7 of the other people who were in the house when he murdered her were Johanna's 4 brothers, her mother, her father, and then the neighbor, a John Doone. With the exception of Mary, each received a sentence ranging from 6 months to 5 years. It is believed that Bridget had had a cold that developed into pneumonia and possibly tuberculosis, which caused Michael to think that she was a changeling. Fun fact, Bridget never came back riding on a white horse. For anyone who was wondering.
That was not the delightful tale of fairies and changelings that I expected.
Nope. I was searching, trying to find, true stories of changelings. Let's, hear this fantasy thing of fairies bringing babies and women. And this was the most kind of the last big changeling story. Because
this is 1895. This was not like 1543.
No. Yes.
This was recent.
On the brink of the 1900s. Yes, I know. So I've mentioned, we've talked a little bit before about your show that you like to watch, the Sexy Outlander show.
Yeah.
They talk about changelings in that. And I've seen that episode before, and I didn't really understand. All I knew is that a woman was bringing her baby into the woods, and the modern woman was like, "What are you doing? You're just killing your baby." And they were furious that they were trying to help this changeling, which they thought was not even their baby, but swapped with a fairy. So,
right.
I did a little research on changelings because the whole thing kind of fascinated me, and I was just, surely this can't be possible that people are murdering because they think it's really like a demon fairy, right?
I'm sorry. So Bridget was just sick. It's not like she was, was she like delirious maybe at any point?
No, she was answering questions, but because she was like not answering them a third time, like they're not hearing her. I'm Bridget Cleary. Tortured. It sounds like her husband Michael's a nut. He's a nut.
It did sound that way. And then my other question, and maybe you will get to this, but how many times did the loved one returned after burning them, and that like this was the belief? Because I'm going to say probably 0 times. How many times did you kill somebody or a baby or whoever thinking that it was a changeling, and then the real one showed back up?
I have only found one story of somebody who returns as a youth, like they weren't a full-grown adult. They were like a teenager, I guess. And they said, yes, I was in the fairy realm. But then there's no specifics. We don't know the name of that person. We don't know. We know that it happened in this particular town, but it also could very well just be lore because there's no other details about this individual who came back and was just like, it is me,
Yeah.
Barnaby, the baby that you put in the forest.
And if you're like an orphan or something, like what a great opportunity to show back up and be, or like not even show back up, quote unquote, and be like, yes, I am your lost child that you're still grieving.
You've got a warm bed and some soup for me? Great.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's not a bad plan. Okay. So it wasn't just in Ireland that the changeling lore came about. They also had this in Scotland, Germany, Wales, in the Polish, Slavic countries. I found a story. This was in Germany, and it says a married couple in Plau, P-L-A-U, Plau?
Sure.
Plough. Had a child, and after 2 years was still only as long as a shoe. It had an enormously large head and could not learn to talk. They shared their concern with an old man who said, German. For sure, the underground people have exchanged the child. If you want to be certain about this, then take an empty eggshell, and in the presence of the child, pour fresh beer into it. Then add yeast to make it ferment. If the child then starts to talk, then my suspicion is right. They follow this advice. The beer had scarcely begun to ferment when the child called out from its cradle, "Now I am as old as Bohemian gold, but this is the first I've ever heard tell of beer being brewed in an eggshell." The parents determined that the very next night they would throw the child into the river. They arose after midnight and went to the cradle, where they discovered a strong and healthy child. The underground people had taken back their own child.
Wow. That is, my brain can't even comprehend. It sounds like a good way, or a very good excuse to, a convenient excuse to dispose of disabled people back in the day.
That's exactly what it is. So one of the tricks that they would do is see if they could trick the fairy into, like, catch them being a fairy and be like, aha, I knew you weren't my child. You were a fairy all along. So I read an article by Kiri Gray. And they had done some research on changelings and said that throughout the Middle Ages until the mid-19th century, stories of changelings were quite common. Many readily believed that an unusual baby might actually be such a creature. A changeling is most often referred to as a fairy who is swapped in or to replace a human baby. The mortal child is taken back to the realm of the fairies to be raised and put to work, while the creature left behind is usually sickly and dies. Though some may live into adulthood, they are always thought to be strange by the locals. So there are a few prescribed methods to get the changeling to leave their home while retrieving their own baby. First, the parent could try to beat the false baby. Apparently, its cries of suffering would summon the fairy back to rescue their family and return the human child. Other forms of violence were also prescribed, like drowning them, leaving them alone in the woods, like I mentioned, leaving them alone in the woods to be taken by their family or eaten by wolves. Parents who decided not to beat their children, thank God, might try to spook the fairy away, threatening to scald them with a hot poker or boil them in a pot of soup were classic examples to coax the changeling to leave, while also maybe mentally scarring their own child for life if they were wrong. Likewise, using objects or symbols hated by fairies, like iron crosses, were another way to kick the changeling fairy out of their home. The least aggressive of the methods to get the changeling out of there were to make it reveal its name or age. Usually this involved shocking it by doing something confusing or unexpected. A mother might crack an egg and throw the insides away while putting the shells in the pot of soup. The point was to get the kid to say, "Well, I, Brittabus the fairy, haven't seen such a sight in all of my 500 years of living." And then the changeling would be whisked away and the true child would return. One reason, well, that kind of goes along with the eggshell.
Yeah, there's a lot of egg tricks that
I don't know why eggs
are like so shocking.
One reason one might kill a child before the 1900s had to really do with economics. A child who could not work because of disability was a drain on the family's meager resources, especially if they lived to adulthood. In some ways, killing a child was seen as necessary so the rest of the family could survive. So this practice goes back even as far to ancient Greece and Rome. It is easy to see how the practice could have spread and lived on well after the empire. These tales must have alleviated some of the guilt felt by the family if they're able to, use the fairies as an excuse of a disabled child. If the fairy stole theirs and replaced it with one of their cursed own, of course the parents should do whatever they could to get their own child back. If the changeling died, that was unfortunate, but only the fairies were harmed there, not their own child. The excuse was accepted for many years. This led to wild abuse of children who had learning disabilities and deformities. In fact, violence and suspicion weren't just reserved for children. While tales of changeling children are more popular, we do know that adults could be swapped with a fairy as well. This often resulted in their being quote-unquote off or not quite right version of themselves. This would have been easy to way to explain the behavior of a loved one who suddenly encountered mental health issues like depression. Changelings are an interesting part of human history, a way for people to explain away children and adults who acted outside of the norm, a justification for killing. While we don't believe in them now, thank God, they are proof of how monsters were created to help people cope with what they didn't understand.
Wow. Definitely not the delightful, fun tale. I thought when you told me you had changeling stories, I thought it was going to be like, oh, that's cute. Not cute at all. What exactly are they? They said that they take the healthy child to the fairy realm to work. That's what they're taking these children for?
Yeah. Each culture has sort of a different, excuse or a different thing of what the healthy baby will do. But yes, sometimes it's to work. Sometimes it's to be sort of like put on of like, oh, honor this healthy child and, you know, bow to it. And
or use its blood to dye their hats red.
For the most part, though, in the family's mind, their healthy baby in the fairy realm is being well taken care of. And it is, you know, it's not being tortured over in the fairy realm.
It's very much along the lines of like this witchcraft too. Cause like you could, like if everyone's believing this sort of thing, oh, it's old lady Hilliger over there is, you know, you don't like her. She's just like kind of a bitch. And you're like, oh, she's been acting strange. I saw the fairies sneak in at the night. I'm pretty sure she's a changeling. And then all of a sudden she's being killed because, you know, the new one will show up. That like an easy or a culturally acceptable, superstitious way to get rid of people.
Exactly.
That is scary and creepy. That is.
I don't have an exact number because, you know, I don't think records were kept of like how many babies, but somebody had put upwards of like 5 million.
Oh my goodness.
Babies and women over the span of time that have been murdered because of believing to be a fairy.
Wow. Not okay. Well, shit. I'm not going to tell you much that's going to make you feel better.
Something to lighten the mood, so we're not talking about poor murdered children. That's what I just told you, stories about murdered babies. Oh You're God. Welcome.
Okay, well, yeah, my what I was bringing you today were last words. So we'll see. It does help sculpt my choices because I have a lot of them, so I can bring you some of the more light ones. And so this came about because, that comedian Gallagher passed away this week. And Mitch and I were both like, I kind of thought, you didn't hear that? I don't know. We both kind of thought
he busted how many watermelons over his span of life?
Gosh, I don't know, man. Probably a lot, maybe 5 million as well. And
I think so.
Maybe he thought they were changeling watermelons. And just had to bust them open.
Dark, to see. Alyssa. It's dark.
Damn. So anyway, both of us were like, I kind of thought he had already passed away. I don't know. We don't really keep up to date on that sort of thing. And then we were like, no. I think we're thinking about that comedian, Sam Kinison. Like he wore a little beret. I think he was like an 80s comedian. I don't know. And he was loud and yelled a lot. I mean, he was famous. He looks familiar, right? You just Googled him, Britt.
Mm-hmm. I did.
He also, I think he was like 38 when he died and he looks 50 or something. Like definitely not a healthy young man. Anyway, Mitch was like, you know about his last moments and his last words. You should talk about that on the podcast. I was like, what? No, he's like, yeah, he like talked to God or something. And so that's what inspired this. And I'm going to read you the story of, it's not even the story. It's just his last moments on earth. So,
ooh, okay.
So Sam Kinison, he was a comedian. He was on the way to a show in Las Vegas and he was in Nevada on a highway when a 17-year-old driver crossed the highway and crashed into his car. Everybody walked away from this accident, Sam included. He was like conscious and awake. And if you look at the cars, it doesn't even look like they're that beat up or anything. Regardless, I think it was determined he had like an aortic dissection. He had some internal injuries from this crash, even though it didn't look so bad. So anyway, they all got out of the car, and then Sam collapsed, and he was laying down in the road, and all of a sudden he looked off into the distance and he began talking to a force that was unseen. And he said, "I don't want to die. I don't want to die," he told the force. And he was apparently having a conversation with someone who wasn't there, is what it appeared like to the people around him. I believe his brother was also in the car. And then he paused and he listened, like the person was talking back to him. He says, "But why?" And then he says, okay. And then he died.
Whoa. I'd never heard of this before.
Yeah. And I couldn't believe Mitch remembered. Like, I don't know. Mitch remembered this. I don't know much about Sam Kinison. I did see something that he was like a tent preacher. So I do think at one point in his life, he did have a religious background or something. But I mean, listening to his stand-up, or what I remember of him, was not preachy. Like, I think he was really into cocaine and stuff. Anyway, so I then was like, just curious about other final last words. And so that's what I'm going to bring you today. There were
awesome
some very creepy ones. And so I think I will try to gloss over some of those. Actually, no, May. I'll start out with a creepy and then I'll bring it up.
Bring it. We don't always have to have chipper, happy, delightful episodes. We can talk about some dark shit sometimes.
So here's a compilation of last words submitted by Reddit users.
So these are people overhearing other people's last words.
Overhearing or like being told them. But yes, people who are present for other people. So these are...
Gotcha.
The reported last words of different people. So the first one is, "They have no eyes. My grandfather on his deathbed said, they have no eyes." And it still gives me chills. "A nice old lady who told my CNA she wanted to wear all white. When asked why, she said, the man in black is here. She looked in the corner of the room, and the CNA looked, but there is no one there. That's when I came into the room. We asked her to describe what she was seeing, and she said, he's in all black, and he's got a top hat on. Then she whispered, and his eyes are red." While her eyes moved across the room to directly behind the CNA, like she was watching him move closer to us. She died later that night, but it was unexpected. That room creeped me out for a long time after that.
Hell yeah, it did. Oh,
was that Hatman, Britt?
Top hat, red eyes. I mean, it kind of fits the bill, but, could have been why red eyes? Oh, that's pretty creepy. He wasn't in the doorway, so maybe not. I don't know.
There's a lot of these ones creeping in the corner. So one I really liked as well was from Roger Ebert of Siskel and Ebert. And in his final moments, he wrote a note to his wife that says, "This is all an elaborate hoax." So she asked him, "What's a hoax?" And he was talking about this world, this place. He said it was all an illusion.
Ooh. Wait, he wrote that down?
I think that, did he have throat cancer? I think that I can't remember.
So that's how he was communicating.
Yeah, I think that, I can't remember which was Siskel and which was Ebert, but I do believe Ebert, yeah, he had like throat cancer, so he must have been writing.
He's the shorter one, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're getting to more uplifting things. Okay, guys, we're getting to more.
Okay.
There's some lady is like, "I'm going to hell," and then she's screaming, "Fire, fire, fire, it's coming," and then dies.
No.
I know, there's some real freaky ones, but we won't talk about those anymore, okay?
No.
We'll go on to some happier ones. Oh, and also I was kind of delving into deathbed confessions, which I think I'll just do a whole nother thing on because there's some doozies.
I like that theme.
Right?
Let me guess. Are there any last words that are like, "No, I'm a fairy and I'm dying," or "I'm going back to the fairy realm"? Any of those?
I was a changeling all along. No, sadly,
no,
there was not.
No.
Okay, so this one says, my brother couldn't really talk while he was dying, but the look in his eyes before his death rattle will haunt me forever. Whatever he saw, it awed him like a kid seeing Disneyland for the first time. I've never seen a person's eyes go so wide. My guess is he saw the whole damn universe at once. And they said, wouldn't that be cool?
Oh, that's what you want for your loved one, right? Like when they're ending this life and going to hopefully the next, that you want them to be in like, wow, you know, like
it gives you
something
hope of like,
spectacular.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Can I give you one deathbed confession? Because this was a good one I came upon.
Always.
It's not happy.
Of course.
Okay. I used to install medical alarms, and one client, a nice, sweet lady, asked me to call her pastor because she wanted to tell him something. I called him, but he was over 2 hours away, and she said, it wouldn't be right to do over the phone. She said, can I tell you then? My first husband would beat and sexually assault me when he was drunk. So when he drank too much, I put his gun in his hand and I shot him in the head. I had no idea what to say, so she thanked me and said I was a good kid, closed her eyes, and slumped over. She had to get that off her chest before death.
Wow. What do you do with that information?
I guess you write it on Reddit and then someone reads it on a podcast later.
Oh, damn.
I mean, what do you do with that information? Oh, there was another really good one. It was along the same lines of someone's grandfather was dying and they said, your mom's first husband, I killed him with something. I rolled him up in a rug and I threw him in the dumpster. And he was like, what? And then he went, after his grandfather passed away, he went and asked his dad, hey, Dad. Oh, because his dad, his mom, the ex-husband, they were all in kind of the same friend group. They knew each other from high school. He's like, whatever happened to Dad's first husband? He's like, you know, no one knows. He just kind of disappeared after him and your mom got divorced.
Whoa.
What do you do with
And Grandpa done it.
Yeah,
Damn.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you do with that information. I'm sure there's people who missed him and loved him, right?
I have so many questions. One, does the mom know? Two, was he like a total scumbag, scallywag and, you know, needed to be rolled up in a rug and tossed in the dumpster? Does the mom know?
I mean, I don't know, right? Yeah, I don't know. It kind of sounds like no one knew and he was the only one and he got away with murder and was like, I'm going to tell someone about this. Just those, let's get it off my chest. Anyway, so my spouse's grandfather passed away last autumn. He was a biologist and loved nature. Before he had passed away, he had explained he had seen another dimension and how all life was connected. He told his children that he wished they would meet again as molecules in a flower. I thought these things were beautiful and reflected well on his life as someone who dedicated his time to learning about nature and its wonders. That's pretty.
That is pretty.
It makes me want to plan my last words. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I mean, if it's a form of, you know, reincarnation and you come back as a flower, I mean, it's a short, sweet life.
It is.
It could be lovely.
It could be lovely. And I mean, it's all time is relative. Maybe it's like an eternity to those molecules in a flower. I don't know. We're not a molecule in a flower.
What would you want to say for your last words? On your little scrippity scrap of paper? Like,
I don't know. I got to think about it. Now I got to think about it and like plan that shit. Maybe really freak him out. Like, I don't, you know.
Absolutely, positively don't look in that box in the closet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Someone's last words was like, she's buried under a tree in the backyard. And they're like, so someone did do something with that information and went and dug in this dude's backyard to try to find, and nothing was ever found. So who knows? Yeah.
Little prank, end of life prank.
Oh, yeah. Prank him. So this one's a good one. I'm a hospice chaplain and worked in a hospital for a long time. There was a spiritual, non-religious man, and I had a good connection with him. He requested that I come to his room. When I did, he motioned for me to crouch by his bed and spoke in a whisper. Do you see my brother in the corner? I told him I didn't, but believed he was seeing him. He was completely lucid and calmly explained that his brother had been in the corner talking with him, hashing things out and coming to forgiveness like they weren't able to before his brother died. He worried the nurses would think he was crazy and try to medicate him. When I assured him I believed him and just wanted to listen to what he had to say, he went on. I see death too. She was in the parking lot. I could see her from my window. She had my brother with her. Now she's in the room. She's all black, but she ain't ugly. He was totally at peace, and he died a few hours later. I like that death was a she. Fuck yeah.
I like that she was a attractive, dark-clad female.
Yes, right?
Hell yeah. She ain't bad looking.
ER physician here had heard many last words from patients, but the creepiest one has to be of a man who was on his last breaths as he succumbed to renal failure. He said, I see a bright light. Horses, no eyes. No, no, no. As he loudly yelled. At this point, he was crashing when he suddenly woke up, looked up, and with his last breath, he said, I understand. And he died.
Whoa. He understands why the horses don't have eyes? What's going on?
I don't know. One, why do so many of these not have eyes? Why are there no eyes in so many of these? Okay. But then I like there's these conversations about like, oh, okay, I understand. There was one other that was like surrounded where there was dead people that they knew in their room. And pretty much they're like, whenever you're ready, I will take you. You just have to reach out and hold my hand. Once you take my hand, that's the end of it.
That's your, time to go.
Yeah.
I'm so curious what these spirits or death or whoever's communicating with these people, like, what are they saying that's convincing them to be like, okay, I'll go. Oh, yes. Okay, I get it.
Right?
All right. Like, what are they selling them? What are they saying?
Well, Ebert's or whatever, like, this is all a hoax. It's just a big, elaborate hoax is very interesting, right? Because there's that theory that this is all a simulation.
It's all a joke. Come with me. I'll show you.
Yeah.
Show you how hoaxy it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting.
I guess someday we'll find out, Britt. And we'll say, I don't know. This is hard. I'm going to really start brainstorming what my last words are going to be. What's like something that's going to really fuck people up in a good way.
Oh, Mom, what is it? What is it? You were adopted. No!
That's evil. And then they're going to be like, wait, what the fuck? Why would you say that? That might be it. I like that. Okay, do you have another story, Britt?
Speaking of death and creepy things, I have a good finisher for us. Last week, I told a couple of stories from AJ about Bat Bear, the Puka fairy.
Yep. Puka.
And also, they explained a bit more about fairy circles and wealth of delightful tales. This story is told of a story from her grandmother. They say, my gran was from Ireland. She told me and my cousins scary bedtime stories about the banshee.
Ooh.
Now, Alissa told a couple of stories about a banshee in a previous episode. Basically, in short, what is it?
I think if you see a banshee, someone's
and death is
die.
near, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So I was hooked immediately. She told us that when she was 13, she was running an errand for her mom with her sister Mary. They had to go through a wooded area to get to the next small town, which was their destination. There was a small stream where the kids used to play and fish. They were approaching the stream, and from a little distance, Mary said to Gran, "What's that, Annie?" They both stopped and looked. Beside the stream, with her back to them, was a figure of a woman with long, dark hair, and she wore a light-colored dress, and her feet were bare. They were silent so they could hear soft, gentle weeping. Without waiting another minute, my gran said she and Mary turned and ran the other way as fast as they could. When they got home, they told their dad about their adventure. Their mom wasn't too happy that they had returned without completing the errand. Their dad said that it was probably the banshee. Their mom just rolled her eyes and mumbled something under her breath. The next day, a younger child that the family knew was found face down in the stream in the same place that they had seen the woman. It is said that the banshee shows up just before a tragedy or death. So there's no screaming, just sobbing. Now that I read the story, did
someone drown the little girl?
Did she drown the little girl? Like, was it the mom? Oh my God! Did they witness a murder?
Right, you're really bringing the hits today. Real.
Oh my God! What?
It's just about adults murdering their children.
Oh my God! It's all about babies being murdered. Okay, sorry about that, and everybody this week. I promise to bring a little lighter next week.
It's actually like being of someone of Irish heritage and like Irish Catholic and just all the secrets and like, you know what? I get it now. I kind of get it because y'all did some fucked up shit in the past. Yeah, that you probably don't want to talk about and don't want neighbors gossiping about and stuff. Everything's got to be a little secretive. The first story you told mentioned a Pat Kennedy, and I was like, oh, where this Bridget Cleary was murdered, and Pat Kennedy was the cousin. And I'm like, oh shit, is this the Kennedy curse? Is this the origins of it?
Oh, damn. Because you said that you have some Kennedy in your blood, right?
That's the
Didn't
rumor,
you?
yeah. But on the Fitzpat, wait. But it wouldn't be a Kennedy last name. It would be a Hannon, which is his great grandmother was a Hannon. I'm a Hannon,
but perhaps cursed.
Fuck, that's why I got all these animals attacking me all the time and shit. Damn, we saw
things flying in your eyes left and right.
The freaking eyeballs, man. I'm gonna lose an eyeball here. We saw a bobcat the other day. That was cool. Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah. It wasn't attacking us. Actually, we like chased it. So turning the tables. But it's not every day you see a bobcat. It was freaking adorable. They're so cute. I want a bobcat in my house.
They're just like oversized cats, right?
Oh
they're not
gosh.
humongous.
No, they're not humongous.
Right?
Yeah. They're very, very cute. They're like a cat the size of a dog. Like not even like a German Shepherd sized dog, like smaller than that. They're pretty
medium
cute.
Dog.
Yeah. They're so stinking adorable. So,
that's a perfect story to end on, that you saw a bobcat and chased it down.
Yeah.
To keep for a pet.
There we go, you guys. See, we're not all about doom and gloom. We see cute animals. We
love cute animals.
Yeah. Well, if you have any stories about, how about last words?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just, if you have a good story about someone's last words, we absolutely want to hear it. Good, bad, haunting, freaky, scary, happy. I can't get enough of this. Or if you want to talk about changelings or how some of your relatives killed another relative because they thought the fairies... Wait, is that what Labyrinth is all about?
Oh, shit.
Oh my God.
Connecting dots. Ding, ding, ding. Or you could just send an email about how fucked up this episode is, and I'll say, I get it. I'm with you, bro.
Yeah, we really went off the rails. Fuck.
You can write us into our hot box
at SkeleTalesPodcast@gmail.com. You can also call our hotline
302-689-DEAD, which is true for this episode.
Damn.
302-689-3323. We are on all of the socials under SkeleTales or SkeleTales Podcast. Go check out our merch shop. We've got a lot of dead baby gear over there.
Okay. Hey, listeners.
Cut that.
Listeners, I think that Britt, I think Britt might be a changeling. And I think that this is not our Britt Kilpatrick, and I need your help.
Start throwing eggshells in places that eggshells don't belong.
And then the real Britt will, or the changeling will say, "Oh my goodness, not in my 500 years have I seen an eggshell do that before."
You have such a great Irish. It's because it's in your blood. What else, Alissa, did we do?
Hey, like, review, rate, share, talk about the podcast with your friends. Do all that. All those things help the podcast in the long run, and we really appreciate it. Anything else, Britt?
Yeah, there's one last thing that the listeners need to know. Haunt y'all later.
Hunt you later. Good night.
Good night.